Welcome to the Townsend Institute podcast series, Tips, a show produced by the Townsend Institute at Concordia University, Irvine. This podcast provides tips into leadership, coaching, and counseling topics aimed at helping listeners grow in both their personal and professional lives. I'm Dr. John Townsend, psychologist, organizational consultant, and author of over 30 books, including the New York Times best-selling Boundaries series. I'm also the founder of the Townsend Institute, and I'm excited to introduce your podcast hosts, Townsend Institute Program Directors Dr. Ashley Andrew and Dr. Gilbert Fugit.
On today's episode of the Townsend Institute podcast series, Gilbert and I sit down with Pastor Steve Zank, director of both the Center for Worship Leadership and Parish Music programs here at Concordia Irvine. Steve shares with us how he and his team help build that bridge between theology, leadership, and practical skills for their students, musicians, and worship leaders around the world.
You got it, Ashley. This episode has great sound bites of information for those in any leadership role, but especially those called to church work. As a former DCE, I can relate to so much of what Steve had to say. When I was in parish, it made me really think about current church workers today striving to combine the long and rich history of theology with the rapid advancements of technology and leadership in the 21st century. How fortunate we are to have stewards like Steve help us out. So let's get started.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Townsend Institute podcast series. Gilbert and I are joined alongside our friend and colleague, Steve Zank, here on campus at Concordia University, Irvine. Good morning, Steve.
Hey, good morning.
How you doing?
You know, I'm doing pretty good. It's a Monday, but still pretty good.
Well, and it's exciting because we're in like this cool podcast room on campus. I didn't even know we had. So,
well, we do. And let me tell you, Gilbert and I are feeling pretty special, pretty powerful behind all of this technology. Yes. And Steve and his team have been kind enough to let us use the podcast room as we are here on campus, recording some sessions alongside our Townsend Institute residency. We've got nearly 150 new students starting their
that's great.
Academic growth journey. And it's been a fun few days.
What kind of students are here right now?
So they're in three programs. We have our counseling program, executive coaching and consulting program, and organizational leadership. Master's really cool. And PhD in counseling.
Amazing.
That's correct. Master's program, certificate students, and students coming from all over. We've got quite the geographic regions represented all across the United States, as well as some international students joining us as well.
Yeah, people from all over the world.
Well, we're excited to sit down and talk with Steve a little bit here today about his journey in church work and music and leadership and how those all have kind of intersected to bring him to where he is here today. So let's start with Steve. Tell us a little bit about your role that you have here.
Yeah, Steve Zank. I'm a pastor in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. And here at the university, one of my roles is a director of parish music program. It's a really important program. And here, that's the way the university serves the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, the church body that the university is connected with. Mm-hmm. And essentially, we walk alongside musicians, young musicians going to college, maybe even a more experienced musician going back to college, either way, to help them prepare to be a musician, to do church music in a church context. And that's one of my major roles here at the university. I'm also the director of the Center for Worship Leadership, which does similar things, but for not for students studying to become church musicians, but people who are already serving a church as a church musician. We come alongside them and encourage them with resources and training. And actually, one of the biggest things we found is support, networks of support and encouragement. The connection with other people who are doing similar work has been important too. So it's been a really fun role, and I really appreciate the opportunity to serve here on campus.
And Steve, that you brought us something really interesting. So what are some of the challenges, especially in your Center for Worship Leadership, the students or I guess practicing professionals there, what challenges are they experiencing in their congregations?
You know, you mentioned COVID just before we started recording, and that honestly has brought a lot of new challenges on top of the challenges that we're already we were facing. Yeah. You know, and with COVID, a lot of things that have come is this sense that we had to broadcast our services online, but broadcasting services, it's not really as simple as pointing a camera and pushing record. I mean, there's so many things to consider. And a lot of church workers came under a lot more pressure to do a lot more things to achieve ministry. And so I think what we're facing right now in the churches is a level of having too many tasks and trying to figure out what tasks to take off the plate is a major issue.
How do you help them realize, okay, this needs to be delegated, or actually this is something you need to focus on? This is core. You got to do this, but here's some other things that you could let go.
At the Center for Worship Leadership, everything we do is connected to what we call our 3 cores of what it means to be a worship leader. And it's like a disc. At the center, it's the sturdiest or stiffest. On the edges, it's the most flexible. And as a Lutheran Church Missouri Synod-oriented organization, at the center is theology, and not just theology, but a particular theology that we confess as Lutherans. And so we help train people, encourage people in theology. And then the second largest circle, core is leadership, which is what we love what Townsend's doing and all ways that they're helping people learn and grow as leaders. And then the final core, the largest, most flexible, is practical skills. So I'd put that in context of an actual practitioner. If you're a church musician in a church context, you have to know theology. If you show up to a church and start worshiping Baal, no one's going to do that, obviously, right? But that's the most extreme example. You're like, wait, this is something's wrong here, right? And there are more subtle examples of this, of course. But in leadership, if you show up and say, people don't matter, programs all matter, let's just get the program done, and you start not attending to the culture of your team, right? That's a problem. And then finally, the practical skills. So if you're asked to sing a song and you sing in the wrong key, I mean, an extreme example, but there's all kinds of other examples along the way. How to run a soundboard, how to plan a worship service, how to pick music, how to select keys, all kinds of skills that a job requires. Now, to your question then, Gilbert, the sense is, I think what we try to do in these contexts is help people filter those decisions through their 3 cores. And you have to start asking questions of theology and leadership. So it begins, for the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, one of the questions is, what's the value of an online service? And what's the value of an in-person service? And at what point are we spending too much time devoted to online services? Because, we have to debate this. Obviously, online services do great good.
Yes.
The gospel is going to places that it hasn't gone before and making a significant impact. That is important. But you have to ask the question then, is church missing something, an embodiment side? Is part of what church is not just what I can receive from the gathered corporate worship setting, but how I participate, what I contribute? And so this is a long-winded answer, but this is the way these complex questions need to be answered, is a nuanced approach to think about the theology of it, the leadership of it, and then what can I actually accomplish, what can I actually do. So I'm pretty sure I didn't provide any answer to your question, but I did say something.
You did. Yeah. So kudos for that. When you're talking about that, especially these different spheres, talking about both, in-person worship, which of course we know that that's the root of ministry and faith and being that body of Christ and coming together. But then just in recent years, and surely that's been exacerbated by COVID, the online worship, you've got 2 almost completely different areas operating, and you can sense that level of exhaustion trying to manage both. And like you said, what amount do you have? And I'm sure that's going to differ by your location, your demographics, the people that you're serving as well. So what is a tip or a recommendation you give to your students or to your worship leaders as they're trying to navigate which avenue do we pursue? Do we try to maintain both? Do we have to choose one? I mean, I'm sure those are some of the questions they're wrestling with.
I think the key is what you want to accomplish with it. What's the goal? One of the big challenges with a musician on broadcast is that you can't just plug a soundboard into the internet and broadcast it. Because what happens is, first of all, the drums sound really bad. If you play drums, the drums sound really bad. Because the drums aren't mic, they're mic for the room, and they're supplementing the room. Or even in a traditional service, if the camera is fixed on one location, part of what's the beauty of a traditional space is to look around and observe the architecture in the room. And so I think the issue we have is, what's the goal of each thing?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're broadcasting something online, what's your goal? And sometimes we have to be okay with it not being 100%.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, was the music online, did it sound as good as in person? No, it didn't. And that's okay. And actually, there's a part of this which is very hard, is that as an artist, if you're a church musician, you're probably an artist who care about your artistry.
Yes.
Things don't sound as good online. When you're a little bit pitchy, you're a lot pitchy online.
Yeah,
When you're a little bit off, you're a lot off online. And so you have to have the humility as leaders to say, it's okay. I'm not going to sound as good as I do in the room. My team's not going to sound as good, but it's okay. We're here to serve the church, and we have to be okay with the fact that we're not going to sound as good online. And when people observe a church service online, maybe you have to realize that we're not trying to provide them an entire experience that is self-sufficient, but how do you point them to come and join us at the congregation itself? And so I think once you decide what kind of goals you have, you might be more free for yourself for not to be perfect in every instance.
Yeah. I love that piece that you talked about, the humility. And that's something we talk about quite a bit in the Townsend Institute in our classes is just that self-awareness, that humility. And you're talking about it from the artistry standpoint.
Yeah.
I was silent during the drum example because I don't play the drums. So
Yeah.
But what you said made complete sense now that I think about it. But I think about being a professor. Both Gilbert and I have experience being both on-campus professors and now online. We think about the counselors in our program that meet with clients face-to-face, but also do telehealth. We think about our executive coaching program and those that are coaching individuals face-to-face in a coffee shop, but also online.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've wrestled with as well too. I know my transition to online teaching, I thought, well, wait a second, where's my whiteboard in the classroom? How do I work around? How do I move around chairs for a small group activity? And part of that can be done with the online technology we have. But I think what you're getting at is it's never just going to be the same. It's different, and that's okay.
It can't. In fact, it can't. If you run it the same way, it's not going to be right.
Yeah.
It's not going to be efficient. It's not going to actually help people learn the best that they could. Yeah. And when you do it online, you have to use different techniques than if you do it in person.
And the same for our leaders, right? I think about those in our program that are running meetings, and they're used to a conference room with 15, 20 people, and now you're doing it on Zoom. So you can still run the meeting and it can still be effective, but the techniques and strategies are going to be different.
Yeah,
I know. And it's funny. I just read an article that Zoom has required their employees to come back to work. Isn't that kind of funny? Huh? So they don't want them.
The irony.
Yeah. Isn't that? Well, hey, Steve, so think about what are some success stories that, people you see they pivoted. They're doing this really well out there in ministry.
It's one of the most fun parts of this kind of work is seeing the maturity over time.
Ah.
So you even my own self, actually, I came here at Concordia University Irvine as a musician, and I'll just tell an embarrassing story. I showed up, and John Jordaning was the director here at the time, and I was a young high school, just after high school student. I came in and I said, I like to play in the band here, and he said, okay, let's do an audition. He had me fill out some forms, and he said, how much do you practice for a service? I said, I don't practice for a service at all. I just come up and I play what I want to play. And I had all these answers that were just really quite immature. And then through his tutelage, I grew. And he challenged me and he showed me things that I hadn't seen before. And then I got to church context and I leveraged those things I learned and I gained more experience. And to me, the success stories we see in ministry in the Director of Parish Music program are that kind of thing. Not to disparage anybody when they're a new leader, but we all have the experience where we have not as much experience and not as much coaching and not as much mentoring, but then along the way we grow. And what I love to see are people that I know have grown immensely in their journey. And I see them in ministry now as leaders, as mentors themselves, sharing the things that they've learned and experienced. And to me, every success story I see in this area comes down to that experience, where you see somebody who's been encouraged, given the tools to succeed, put in experiences to grow, and now you see them training up people because they're the mature ones now. And so there's many people like that in our in our group, and I share my own story because I don't want anyone else to feel like I'm targeting anyone else, And I'll say it's not about you.
Well, and Steve, so the mentors, that's
Yes.
such a big thing for musicians. And I'm sure it can feel isolating in a church, right? Because I bet a lot of these directors of parish music are maybe solo, right? There's not
That's a big
big
part.
staff
Yeah.
there. How do they connect with other people? How do you encourage people to do that?
There's a few ways we do that at the Center for Worship Leadership. And one of the most successful ways recently has been the Songwriter Initiative.
Oh.
Kip Fox is one of those amazing leaders who's grown throughout his time, just like myself. He leads that whole program, and he gathers songwriters via Zoom every month, and they share songs together. And we have a retreat for songwriters here at Concordia University Irvine in the summer, in May. And we just doubled capacity and sold out for 42 songwriters to come and write songs together. That's been a huge success for people to gather and to be encouraged as songwriters. We also have something called the Worship Arts Leader Initiative, where we gather once a year people from all over the country to come around learning and experiences as worship arts leaders in both a traditional and a modern style. And then we encourage them to get together and form friendships. And finally, we have a Facebook page like everyone does, right?
Yeah,
You have to have a Facebook.
That's right.
I've heard of that
That's
before.
right. And I think we have almost 1,000 people on that page nowadays. And people share ideas there. They share hardships there. And there's a group of people, of like-minded people with similar experiences, maybe a little further down the road, who can offer insights. And so that's a very important part of our ministry. And we do that, I think, well. And I was looking for more ways to do that, because you're absolutely right. Someone in a context who's a worship arts leader, a church musician, sometimes it's not just they're alone at the church in terms of their job, but they're even regionally, they could be kind of isolated.
That's what great networking, what great support system and community that y'all are building through those initiatives. That's wonderful. Just kind of a fun fact as we start to close out here, I'd love to know, what's your favorite worship song or artist? Do you have one that you can?
That's a great that's a great question.
I know the right answer, but let's see if Steve gets it.
What's yours?
No, I'll get to hear yours first, because you'll copy that.
I was gonna copy you, actually. So you're very savvy to know that. Honestly, very self-serving here, but the Songwriter Initiative is an artist. We produced doctrinally reviewed Lutheran songs for worship. Every 6 weeks, we have a new release. We just started that. We have 8 songs coming out. They're in the
pipeline.
pipe. They call it pipe, don't they?
Yeah.
The pipeline.
Yeah.
And the songs are amazing. And the artists are all really amazing artists that are involved in our network. So, it's a self-serving question, but the Songwriter Initiative is a great artist. Beyond that, in terms of the more popular artists, what our church has been using a lot is a group called City Alight. Have you heard of City Alight?
I have not.
We've been using them at our church for some of our songs, and we've really connected with them.
All right. So City Alight and the Songwriter Initiative, where can we find the releases for the Songwriter Initiative?
Everywhere. Oh, everywhere. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. For every song, we release a YouTube video.
Oh, great.
Is it on like Concordia's website anywhere?
It's on the Center for Worship Leadership YouTube page.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Okay.
But yes, we also have a site, a page at the Concordia website. If you go to cui.edu, either the backward or forward slash.
Try
What's the
both.
one you use?
Either one.
Yeah.
Try either
There
one.
is a slash. You all know what it
There
is.
Whichever one works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the slash.
Just use the slash. Yeah.
CWL. So cui.edu/CWL, Center for Worship Leadership. And that'll take you to the page. But again, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, everywhere you can listen to music is there.
Okay.
We're adding it to our list. Steve, we can't thank you enough for your time here today. We close out all of our episodes by asking for your one takeaway tip for the Townsend Institute podcast series. So we'd love to know, you just gave us great recommendations for songs, but again, going back to this great conversation we've had on your integration of faith and leadership and this idea of theology, leadership, and practical skills, what's one takeaway tip you have for our listeners?
One thing I've been learning recently in my leadership is that it's a process. And we want to get to the end result. And sometimes we're not the end result. We don't know how to lead through the middle time where you're not there yet with other leaders, with other processes. And how do you, in my experience, how do you actually live in an in-between time and be flexible with other leaders that aren't where you want them to be yet, and processes that are still in process. I want my encouragement would be to keep learning how to be flexible, and know that you're in a process, that you're moving towards your leadership goals, but don't act as if you're already there with your team.
Got it.
Be flexible with yourself and with them, and be content with making progress.
That's great.
That's really good. Thanks, Steve. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll check out the Center for Worship Leadership and the Songwriter Initiative.
Oh,
I'm going to get some new songs to listen to.
You're going to love it.
My favorite one was Audio Journal in Big House. And so I'm a little dated, right? I mean, that is mine. So Steve, thanks for some new ones. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
All right. Take care.
Special thanks to Gadesalabawa, CUI alumni, for the Tips Podcast music. If you enjoyed the Townsend Institute podcast series, head to our website, cui.edu/Townsend, to find out more about the certificates or bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degrees offered through Concordia University Irvine. With programs in organizational psychology, mental health counseling, executive coaching consulting, and organizational leadership, we have a variety of faith-based programs dedicated to helping you fulfill your academic and professional goals, all while further developing your competence and character. Again, that's cui.edu/Townsend.